On the other open source occult TV channel, we just talked about the idea of the alt-right being a kind of a, well, I brought this idea before, an expression of the Presbyterian Church. And when I see people like Jordan Peterson now, what I see is a Presbyterian minister. It's nothing you wouldn't hear as a proclamation from like the Grand Council of the Churches of Church of Ireland, the Church of Scotland, the Church of Canada. It's very in that league. Not that there's anything right to their own, as people say, but it's in that league. I got a fucking sun here. It's in that league. And the alt-right thing, okay, I never saw it as anything other than a form of entertainment. I can't stand any political system. I'm a political eunuch. There's things that are left-wing that I think are good ideas, like, universal health care, access to reproductive services, and the general idea of, taking God out of society, diversion and inclusion. I'm all for that stuff, as long as it's the true thing and not domination of any, or just, picking on one group to appease another. And there's things about the right that I like too, like I like hard punishment. I'd be in favour of capital punishment for paedophiles, and well, if they were like, when I say paedophiles, I mean the ones who are constantly raping young children, like the Jimmy Savile types, or the ones who go after, like Ian Watson, go after babies, and them types. Some guy who's just a regular nonce, give him a prison sentence and fucking, let him fucking live with that. Chemical castration or something like that. But and I like the right wing thing of protection, like military protection. I know that sounds very uncool, but country needs an army. It's just as simple as that. You're just like a tribe in the past had warriors. Now, but that doesn't mean I'd ever when Trump won, I just thought it was hilarious, just the entertain, and that's why I was so happy about it. Not because I support conservative politics, Jesus Christ, no. I was just so happy that was going on, and I have to say the whole thing of Keck and that whole Discordia thing was absolutely wonderful while it went on. It's just entertainment value, but we all knew it was never going to last. It was never going to lead to anything. But it was funny. It's just funny. I love seeing celebrities lose their rag and things like that and go mentally and unhinged. But the thing with the alt-right is, I don't like the fact, first of all, you have to, let's talk about reaction and reactions and counter-reaction, right? The reason why we have a liberal society today is because in the past, you couldn't, if you were forbidden, like I used to call them in Ireland, the Anti-Happiness League. If you wanted to be gay, you could go to prison. If you were gay, you could go to prison. If you were, like the whole thing of the sexual, in Ireland didn't have a sexual liberation. Actually, it did behind the scenes. But we that all came about because of oppression in the past. People unable to. Now, I know the free love thing was a big CIA thing on many levels and that kind of thing. It's really fucking hot here today. And but at the same time too, just because free love was out there doesn't mean everyone wanted it. And just like conservative sexuality is postularized by the alt-right, doesn't mean everyone wants it either. What consenting adults do in their own homes sexually to each other is absolutely no one's business, and it's not for governments or anyone like that to regulate that. Not at all. Once nothing is being harmed, if I want to bang, the Bishop of Roscommon up the arse tonight in my house, that should be my business, no one else's. And not that I would, by the way. And this whole morality thing comes out of the Christians' psychiatric disorder of the anti-happiness thing, celibacy and all that stuff. And the morality is bollocks. Morality is imposed by religion. It's human decency and morality are two different things. Not robbing a poor person's money is not the same thing as a poor person having gay sex with another poor person at night at home. And that's morality, where decency is like, well, what the poor person does with his friend at night is his own business, but don't rob his money. That's the difference in morality and decency. Morality comes out of religion, decency comes out of kindness. And this alt-right thing, you had, like, you know, the guy Milo, very funny guy, calling himself the world's most dangerous queer and all that. It was very clever, but it hasn't dried up really quickly. And you don't really get it anymore because it was just a flash in the pan. And I absolutely could not. I grew up in a conservative country, and it is shit. It's absolute shit. You think conservative is about decent, intelligent management of a society. It's none of the sort. Conservatism is about boredom. I mean, you want to see okay, you come to the island of Ireland. The difference between the Republic of Ireland, which is a very liberal country, and Northern Ireland, which is a very conservative country, it's like here on the beach in Sligo, it's like Malibu or California. 20 miles inland or 25 miles inland, you go across the border to Northern Ireland to Enniskillen, and it's like 1950s England. You still see fucking ads for Spam, where over here it's beautiful girls in bikinis on the beach. And that's people are much happier, but that's not for everyone. And I respect that someone may want the conservative lifestyle, just like some people may want a liberal lifestyle. But the government policy on either side should not dictate either one of those. There should just be freedom to be what you want. Freedom, as long as it's not hurting another person against their will. Freedom to be what you want. So it's like, a government's policy should be people sexualize their own business. If someone wants to have sex in public, don't do it in front of children and families. But if you want to have sex in public where there's no children and families, that's your own business. And people who are hung up on family values shouldn't be imposing that stuff on, gay people. You see, this is one of the things with the alt-right thing as well, and the alt-left, would want to call it. You have, you'd ask many men who were married with families, they'd tell you they were envious of gay men and their freedom. We're seeing some fella who, I fell in love and I got married and I had 2 kids and my life was a fucking mess after that. Why would gay men want to give up their economic and social freedom in order to raise a baby? Oh, we're just like a nuclear family. Me and Chad, we have a baby and we're raising him like a baby. Why do you want that? I mean, if you want to go ahead, but do you really want it, or are you just trying to pretend you're straight? Gay liberation shouldn't be being being the straightest person you can be, the straightest queer you can be. Gay liberation should be, I'm gay, I'm liberated, deal with it, and fuck you. And I'm not a regular, normal member of society. That's the end of it. And so, I mean, I see that on the... So, and then people might be conservatively inclined to say that, a man and 2 men shouldn't be raising a baby or a child, and 2 women shouldn't be raising a baby. Well, I have mixed feelings about that. I do believe that the ideal is a mammy and a daddy. That's if you can do that. But there's overwhelming evidence, and it is out there if you look, that gay people do make good parents when they put their minds to it. There's been the odd mess and that kind of thing. But look at all the straight parents who are bad parents. I mean, so there's very good objective data that kids raised in gay families do okay. And so I've no problem with that. So what's the problem? The child gets a decent life growing up, end of story. It shouldn't be seen as better than or a deal, or just should be seen as doing it. But I'm sure there's lots of some gay couples who want to adopt babies just because they can be kind of trendy. And don't say it doesn't happen. We all know it does. It's just like there are straight people who have fucking kids and give them stupid celebrity names just so they can be trendy. Most human beings are not very intelligent or bright when it comes to anything. And that includes parenting. And again, when I see things like, alt-right, I see a new set of rules. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. And it's all very kind of Presbyterian and, family values and all this nonsense. And if you want that, like, also I find that amazing that, like, you'll have, like, these people going to alt-right events and saying, I want a traditional family, 2 kids and a wife. Okay, where's the law stopping you? There's gays being allowed to marry. But how is that stopping you from having a wife and 2 kids? You know, this is you see, this, it's like, it's almost like a what you call it, a ricochet of decadence. No one's oppressing you. No one's telling you. In the school, they're reading my child a book saying, you know, by a cross-dresser. Oh, who cares, you know? I mean, it only gets extreme when you have that kid, that Desmond kid. That's clearly a parental issue there. These mothers, I don't know. I'm not going to say that this would be wrong to say that all mothers who have little kids who are cross-dressers or transgender are all Stockholm syndrome, but I do wonder sometimes when you see some of these mothers interviewed and they're so out there showing, like, this is my child, he's wonderful. At the same time too, you have these parents who raise their little sons and daughters as little drummer boys. He's a perfect child, he's God-fearing, he goes to church, you know, he's got conservative that's just as bad. It's just as bad. So you see this pendulum swings back. Why do you have to always have this pendulum thing going on, this thing that has to be like we have to swing from one to the other? It's because people are afraid to make personal decisions. That's what that is. That's what that is. That's what that's all about. Now, things about the alt-right that I do like are the ideas of personal freedom in terms of free speech. Very important. And you saw that Democratic Socialists event in America, in Atlanta, and it's absolutely comical. It was like, I was waiting for the Benny Hill music to come at the end. And what you saw there is exactly the kind of people who are on the other end from the alt-right, neurotic civil servants and spoiled college students who've never worked a day in their lives, and hipsters and snowflakey types, you know, Marxist professors. But they're not typical of the left wing any more than Tommy Robinson and that bunch are typical of the right wing. And the media always plays both the extreme as the norm. You will find that the average person I know who's socialistly inclined tends to be from a working class labour union background, and that's fine. That's the place for that. And people who tend to be conservative, physically working in business, and they want to pay as least taxes as possible, no problem with that. No problem with that. The problem is when it becomes a mandate, and I saw that with the alt-right thing. It was like, okay lads, it's a bit of fun now, maybe it's time to just give it a rest. And I understand why it came about, just as why I understand why gay rights, feminism and all that stuff came about. There is a transition point where, and it's back to this Abrahamic mind virus again, there's a transition point where things tick over into where they shouldn't go, where the demarcation line is crossed. The best, you know, this is the whole thing. I mean, I had someone call me alt-right. Well, I don't know why it was. Just because I wasn't. A few things. Like, I'm not crazy. Oh yeah, don't like Islamic militants, jihad and all this. But I fucking hate Christian militants. Like, give me a break. I'm picking on both of them, and I don't. You know, just like. The Trump thing was purely just me entertaining. I mean, that's how selfish it was. I only wanted Trump to win the election for my personal entertainment. Why should I respect democracy when my 2 votes in the Lisbon Treaty were both ignored by the EU? So remember that one. That's my love affair with democracy ended with the Lisbon Treaty. If the EU could be blamed for anything, it's been they've made people hate democracy. And even the Brexit thing that's going on in England, that was another thing that was very funny as well. All these poshies saying, we'll be banned from eating pizza. I'm a socialist. And this kind of thing. And this is the problem with the alt-right. The alt-right will say, oh, we love queers, we love homosexuals, look at we love Milo, oh, we love queers. But no, that's it. And we can't have, stop it at that. No kid, they can't have kids. Let them have kids if they want. If they're good and they can take care of it. And I totally get the religious fundamentalist thing, but why isn't Milo why is Milo only picking on Islamic fundamentalists? Why isn't he picking on Christian fundamentalists? Remember, the people that mostly voted Trump in the US would be Southern Baptists or Pentecostals in the US, and they would have exactly the same hatred of gay people that the Islamic extremists would. So you see, he's not being honest there. The problem is both. And then they'll say things like, well, then the thing is, well, as a Christian, you know, like, I'm gay, but I'm a Christian. That's great. I don't care if you're gay. Good for you. It's good you have a spiritual identity. But I'm fearful of what Islam will do to me. Have you ever seen what was done to gays in Ireland and other countries? You know, look at what you think all those girls in the Magdalene laundries were. They were suspected lesbians, or they were just sexy girls, and someone was jealous somewhere, and some fella didn't want to take care of a bastard, and so, you know, I think, yeah, liberalism is probably the ideal thing, as long as it's the kind of liberalism of the 1960s, 50s, 40s. That kind of liberalism. That's the ideal thing. Racially, we should not be having anything to see. A lot of the alt-right go, look at all the black people who support the alt-right, but that's tokenism as well. You should be not pointing them out saying, look, black people like me too. You should be saying things like, you should ignore them, they're just people. They're on your side. Not because this kind of thing. It's like, it should be judged according to a person's personal values, not towards the demographic they're from, although there's people on all sides play that. It's the human nature tribal thing in many ways. So the alt-right was always kind of doomed from the start. It was only ever a form of entertainment, and I see the alt-right in the same way. The alt-right will have no lasting political, effect. None at all. It was a satirical movement in exactly the same way as you had left-wing socialist comics in the 1970s and 80s challenging conservative values. It was the opposite of that. It gave that's all the comedy was on the right wing, and all the lack of comedy was on the left wing, and that will switch around in time, and you will have like switched around. I mean, all the best comics tended to be left wing until the 1980s, and all the right wing comics were all kind of like driven out, and then the left wing wasn't funny anymore because, as you see, here's a very good point for you. Miss Thomas Sheridan's philosophy for living. I'm going to mention one of my greatest philosophical influences ever, and a beautiful word of wisdom. Howard Stern. Howard Stern, I used to listen to his show every day when I lived in New York and K-Rock. He was absolutely hilarious. People think it's just all tits and porn stars. He was a very astute commentator, but delivered it in the style of this outrageous stuff. And what made it so edgy and so good was the fact that he couldn't say what he wanted to say because of the FCC restrictions. And so he became cleverly satirical, and just to stay underneath the no-fly zone set by the FCC, and that's where the best comedy came from. Then he moved to Sirius and digital radio, and the show just isn't funny anymore. It's still good in terms of interviews. He's a very, very good interviewer. And he even said himself, when the restraints were taken off him, he discovered that he couldn't be funny anymore because he was no longer a pirate, because the pirates were made legal. And there's a lesson in life for that, is that never ever become mainstream. Always be an outsider, like in Colin Wilson's book. Always be as much of a maverick as you can, and never allow yourself to ever be satisfied with what happens in your life. Always incite chaos, because the seeds of greatness are born and grow into fruit from the fertilization and the process of chaos, not from conservatism. Nothing comes out of a conservative society that's of any value. Sweden is rubbish. It's a left-wing conservative society. It's rubbish. My country produced amazing stuff when it was a mess. Now then suddenly we became a rich country like a Scandinavian country, and all Ireland produces now is boy bands. And look at all the bands, all cool bands we used to produce when we were shit. Never ever allow yourself to become respectable, and never ever allow yourself to become satisfied with the society you've created around you, because what you'll have discovered is that you've created a monster, and the monster is your limitations. So the alt-right, alt-left, walk the middle road in everything.